provides local and global community parents and educators tools and resources to create and sustain a healthy, safe environment for children. Formerly, it was Birth to Three. It's a nonprofit organization. And Mika, who's with us twice, sort of there, once on her phone and once we can see her face, is the managing director. So Mika, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I live up in the Coast Range, and I have to tell you, I have a very unstable internet connection, and I may suddenly have to switch to cell, and hopefully I have a good cell connection, but we'll see how it goes. It's a pleasure to see you all. I have a feeling I see some faces I recognize. Having been a recipient agency for the duck race for many years over time, and having had the pleasure of being our agency's representative at the duck race meetings and presenting to y'all each time there was a duck race that we were able to participate in. Anyway, that was a really wonderful thing, and I understand why it's not continuing. It was a lot of work, but I just want to acknowledge that that was really a wonderful, wonderful thing for our organization over time. You guys have just been spectacular. So thank you for the introduction about who our organization is. That made it easy for me. And I want to start, I heard that this meeting focuses on children, and certainly our organization's focuses on children. And as our name says, Parenting Now, we reach the kinds of goals we want for children through parents. We believe very, very strongly that parents are our children's most important teachers. Parents or those in the parenting role. The adults that children interact with for most of their time, their days or whatever. And the earlier the better, because we know that so much of development for healthy development for children happens in the first 3 years of life. So providing support to parents right from the get-go is what we try to do. We reach a wide range of parents, from parents who are probably doing pretty well and maybe and often do have access to means, to wealth. And so we call that our general population programs, first 3 years. And for those who participate in those programs, they pay tuition. And many of them then come on to our board and support us in all kinds of ways, to volunteering their time and their effort and their money. Something like 75% of our board are current or former parents of our program, which we're very, very proud of. And we have board members that have been with us for 20 years. So it's a dedicated group. But we also extend our efforts to families who are at higher risk for child abuse. And that program is called Make Parenting a Pleasure. And that's what the duck race, by the way, did support. That program, we've been providing since mid-80s. And it is really for families who are experiencing a high level of stress. And I know there's many people in here who experience stress, and boy, it's been a stressful time. Are you all able to still hear me? Yes, good. I can't tell. It's been stressful this last year for all of us. And it's not really just about experiencing a high level of stress. It's about how we manage stress. And our focus is to help families learn how to manage stress. One of our focuses, learn how to manage stress in a way that is healthy for them and their children, so that the incidence of child abuse or the potential for child abuse goes down. Often high stress is a trigger for things to fall apart in the home. We have some very, very strong curricula that is very specific in teaching skills for parents to practice and model for their children around managing stress. there's a lot of sharing between families, and we know that as parents reduce their isolation, the potential for child abuse goes down. So we really encourage that networking and sharing of ideas, strategies. How did this work? Did you try that? Our groups are highly interactive. Parents really are most of the content. It's a guided process, and we feel that's very, very important, so that parents discover they really do have a lot to offer themselves and each other and their families as they start to share and are validated. As they try things and they share how those strategies work, and they get support from each other. Lifelong friendships have come from families, parents participating in our groups. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to be one of our families, but I can tell you that we've been in our community doing our services for 42 years, and we're now serving children of parents who came through our programs way back when. And we know anecdotally that many of them are still very close, very in touch. Even if they're living across the country, they're visiting each other. They're probably Zooming now. I know they would get together for a corking party from time to time at a winery, or you name it. It's all been in the mix. But that support, that lifelong support, is one of the legacies that we encourage and are very proud of, that it actually happens. We have learned a lot about what works with families and how to conduct very effective parenting groups that are facilitated and safe for families, that there's a lot of opportunity for families to grow. And we've taken that knowledge and captured it into curriculum that our first curriculum came out, I believe it was 1997, and it is Make Parenting a Pleasure. And we have sold the curriculum across the United States and actually internationally ever since. And it's part of how we support ourselves. You might say we're a social enterprise, and it's part of how we fulfill our mission. We feel that when a program in Wichita, Kansas buys our curriculum and starts implementing it, they are fulfilling our mission. It's essentially spreading the word, if you will. And we are now in 47 states, 17 countries. I know Rotary is an international organization, and some of you may know we traveled to Romania. If you remember, Minnalee Sachs, our founding director, she went to Romania and helped implement Make Parenting a Pleasure there. That was instrumental in reducing the abandonment of children into the institutions. Families were encouraged to actually give their children into the institutions when they had more children than they felt they could support. And we all know how horrible that was for children. It was a terrible solution, if you will, with devastating effects on the development for those children that were in those institutions. So we were thrilled to be able to be part of that. It was in partnership with Holt International. It was, the curriculum was translated into into Romanian. Their staff lived with us for 3 months and learned everything we know how to do. Our board members put them up. So they had a place to stay. And then they went back and implemented. The first group of parents who had, that they did were 12 parents. And they had all already abandoned their children into institutions. And every one of them took their children back home. Mm. And for me, that's proof positive right there. They discovered they really were the best solution for their children, and providing them with support on how they can be there for their children was instrumental in that. Last we heard, since we haven't gotten data recently, but over 100,000 families have benefited in Romania from Make Parenting a Pleasure. And we're very, very proud of that. It's just, for me to know that we can have an impact across the ocean all the way over in Romania is just a wonderful thing. We've also been implemented in the Ukraine, We've been to India, we've been to Africa. Halai actually is using our curriculum, and that sale happened quite a while ago. We're assuming they're still using it. We don't actually really know. Of course, this last year has been quite the challenge. And we are concerned about the potential for an increase in child abuse because isolation is a risk factor for child abuse. And with everybody being sequestered in their homes, and school is through the internet. Children are not necessarily leaving their houses, and people aren't necessarily having an opportunity to see how things are going for children. We are concerned that there is an increase in child abuse that is unreported and unknown. And it's very much at the top of everybody's mind, I think, in our field. We had to shut down immediately, March 21st. I just remember so clearly, the word went out. We could not conduct our groups in person anymore last year. So it's been over a year now since we've had any in-person groups because of COVID. But by the summer, we had figured out how to offer our groups using Zoom. It took some doing, some retooling, looking at our curriculum, redesigning, making sure we could keep it interactive, making sure we could keep it accessible. And we pulled it off. And the feedback that we've gotten from families who have participated, and this is across all of our programs, for high-risk families, for families that are the general population, that it is working. I can't say they are enjoying it, they're showing up, they're giving us positive feedback. I can't say how they would have felt if they had been in person, because they don't really have that opportunity for comparison. This is what they're experiencing. And so maybe the in-person would have been as useful to them, maybe more so, but it does work. And we were terrified, actually, that we wouldn't be able.
We lost you, Micah.
I think what she was afraid of has happened.
Micah, if you can hear us, we lost you. You might want to go to your phone.
I think she was on her phone. It was she was showing muted.
Yeah, there she is.
Okay.
Now we can see you again. You just froze up there for a minute.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know. We have figured out how to offer our training using Zoom. And so now we're training people all over the country, and they're joining us with Zoom rather than having to travel to us or us travel to them. It's actually cheaper for everybody. And it seems to be a way going forward, even once that's no longer an issue in terms of COVID. We're probably going to continue to offer our training virtually, maybe have both options available to people. So, it's hard to talk about a gift from COVID because it's just been so hard and in so many ways tragic. And nevertheless, I will say that this was one of the good things that came out of it for our organization, is discovering new ways of offering what we do out in the world using virtual platforms like we're meeting right now. All of our staff are working remotely with the exception of 2 or 3. And we have our staff meetings virtually, like we just like it looks like for you guys right now. Our program meetings, everything. Our Healthy Families program, we are one of 2 providers in Lane County for Healthy Families. Relief Nursery is the other provider. And that is a program that is home visits. In other words, our staff going into somebody's home and supporting new families just starting out that have some risk factors for child abuse. It's one-on-one, different than the group format, although we do invite, and they do often join groups. And they get a visit once a week. Maybe it's every 2 weeks after a while, then maybe it's once a month, and we stay with them for 3 years. Well, all of that had to go virtual also. And we figured it out. And we were able to offer those home visits this way. We're really looking forward to being able to get back in person with that particular program, because we think that's really important. But we're really glad that we were able to continue the service, and we were able to still serve families. So again, most of our staff is working remotely, have learned a lot in terms of technology to be successful with that. And we're just looking forward to life getting back to normal, as you would say. I'm trying to think if it's anything else I can share with you. Oh, I do want to say that all of our programs are designed based on the needs that we've seen. And when there was, back in the early 90s, there was quite a growth in immigration from Latin America. And so we started offering a program called Crecer, which is our Make Parenting a Pleasure program adapted for Spanish. We continue to do that. And our Make Parenting a Pleasure program that we sell, the curriculum that we sell to organizations so they can do similar work, has also been adapted for Spanish. We sell that as well. We're now doing an update to that. We were just so lucky to get a really nice grant from Spirit Mountain so we can begin that project. We also have Make Parenting a Pleasure has also been offered to young parents, because it's a whole different set of issues for parents who are 15, 16, 18, even 21. It's hard for them, as Camille knows, that's how I know Camille, by the way, from when she used to work with teen parents, that it's not the same conversation as having parents who are 25, 28, 32. The issues are different, their needs are different. So we do groups for young parents, they will tell us that they do it all. The facilitator becomes invisible. Peer interaction and peer support is much more front and center for that population. And we finesse it, make sure they're getting all the good stuff and it's still working for them, but they really think they did it all. But we have reconnected with some that have come through that program over the years, because we've been doing that since the mid-'80s as well. 42 years, by the way, we've been doing this work. One woman that we reconnected with ended up going back. Many of them had dropped out of school. She ended up, with our encouragement, going back to school, which is not uncommon with the young parents we serve. We helped them do that. She went back to school, ended up getting her CPA, ended up working for Deloitte & Touche down in, I think it's the Los Angeles area, as a senior accountant up in their top management. And when she reconnected with us, she blamed us for it, said that it was really because of the support and encouragement she got by coming through our program. And then she decided that she would be writing us a good sized check every year from that point forward. And she has made good on that. We're going on into 15 years of those checks arriving at our doorstep, which, you know, she's actually retired now and she's still writing the checks. We don't have a lot of deep pockets to do retrospective research to see the efficacy of our programs. It takes a lot of money to do that. All we have is anecdotal, and that's an example. We have many of why we know that what we're doing is working, is making a difference. So I'm going to stop talking and open it up, and you guys can ask any questions.
Questions for Mika, run.
Yes, Mika, you may remember we worked together to help produce the second annual symposium. Our fourth annual symposium for Kim's Foundation is going to involve homelessness and unhoused people and their needs for mental health. So the question I have for you is, to what extent are you finding you're able to work with and maintain help with homeless and unhoused families, or is that a critical area we need to address in some additional ways?
Yeah, it's not our core competency in homelessness. It per se is not our core competency. Parenting education is. That being said, many of the families that we serve are dealing with homelessness. And part of what we do is make sure that we are very knowledgeable about the resources in the community to make connections and referrals and all. We have families who are joining our Zoom groups out of their cars. We have actually gotten a grant from the Eugene Rotary, I believe, to buy iPads so that we can make sure that families that are participating in our groups have the technology to participate. That was a really wonderful thing. Is one of the things we realized, that we can offer it, but if they don't have the technology, they don't have a computer to connect with, then they can't join us. So I don't know if that answers your question. Again, we're not in that space specifically, but we certainly serve families who are dealing with those issues and making referrals to those resources that can help them.
Are you reaching out, or are there other ways that you try to make contact with them?
In terms of recruitment, is that what you're asking? So families—
Well, in terms of making your services available to that segment of our community.
Right. So that happens in a variety of ways. We are networked with pretty much every organization in town that's serving families, including those that are serving families who are dealing with homelessness. And so I think the knowledge about our services is pretty well known through the community. And as you may or may not know, we produce a poster called Resources for Families with the Active 2030 Club. The junior version of Rotary, the Active 2030 Club, has been a funder of that poster since the early 80s, and they just renewed their support for it. And with that poster, we have all the organizations out there, including organizations that work with families dealing with homelessness, but we also network with those organizations in the process of bringing those posters to them to make sure they know about our services and are making referrals. And then when we are doing our enrollment outreach, those are certainly organizations that are included in who we outreach to. So if they're not actually connected to an organization that's receiving services, it's harder to reach them. We don't have the ability to go out and talk to people directly. So hopefully they're connecting with some organization that can then refer them on to us. Word of mouth is a huge resource for us, for families finding us. There is no referral necessary. A family just needs to reach out. They can do it by picking up the phone, or they can go into our website and click and fill out a real brief form so that we can reach back out to them. So there shouldn't be any barrier. They don't need to get a written referral. They don't need to fall into any criteria other than they have a child who is between the ages of 0 and 8 years of age. That's our only criteria, period. Ability to pay doesn't matter. There is no other criteria other than the age of their child. So, yes.
Do you have any special programs for kids, say, with autism or special needs?
My grandson is on the spectrum, by the way, and he's 10 and a half. I just visited him and my daughter in Maui. I just got back. You could probably see the sunburn on my cheeks. We do not have a specific program for families whose children are dealing with disabilities. They are integrated into our program along with all other families. And the way we conduct our groups is we really encourage individual families within each group to bring forward what their goals are and what their struggles are with their families, so that we can support each other and help them with strategies. And then of course, make sure that they're connected to the services that the larger community offers. You know, it's an interesting question, because sometimes we talk about, should we do a special group for this type of family or that type of family or this other type of family? It's a numbers game, and it's a funding game. And, you know, to be able to always have all these different specialized groups and have funding for them is really, really difficult. On the other side, I think there's some benefit in families who have children with autism being welcomed and supported with families who don't have children with autism, so that that broader appreciation is in the mix. You know, there's some risk with isolation, I think, as well. You know, that your family's weird and your kid is weird is not helpful. And so I think the way we approach it does work. We hope it does. Sometimes we will have families that will join our groups that will have a support person with them from one of the other organizations, so that they're more successful, especially if it's a parent with limited abilities themselves, like a family that Pearl Buck might be serving, with maybe they have normally developing children, but they themselves have some cognitive limitations. Sometimes they'll come with a support person to help them be successful.
Other questions? No?